Hello and welcome to the very first episode of The Real List. This is a podcast about our real list, or our movie list. I'm your host Ellis,
And I'm your host, Gloria.
and today we have a selection from...
Me.
But before we get to that, we would normally roll right into that, or at least we could, but I'd like to give a little preface. This is our very first episode. It's slated to be a half-hour show. I don't know how long it's going to be at this very moment. And from here, it's probably going to move on to the community channel, the Iron Horseman community channel. But
Small plug, but okay.
I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. But I wanted to say that this is a work in progress show. We don't know if we're going to have any major segments, etc. And the basic premise of this is we have a movie list. It is... Oh, how long exactly? It is a couple hundred movies long. It is actually 124 right now, of which we've watched maybe a dozen.
Maybe?
Maybe. We're a little slow, but this should push us in that direction. I'm actually going to move my mouse over so that I can accurately work the list here. But this show is a work in progress, so bear with us. This was actually your brainchild.
Yeah, this was my idea.
Yeah. She comes to me and goes, I want to do a podcast. And I said, well, what could we do it on? And so, come around to this, and a couple nights ago we watched the first official movie for this. We'll probably be returning to the other ones. But I'll hand it off to Gloria now so she can talk about the movie. What did we watch on Thursday night?
Well, we watched V for Vendetta. It came out in 2005, and it's directed by James Teague, starring Natalie Portman. She's done many works, and Hugo Weaving, who I've never seen before because he wore a mask. I think he was actually in...
I've never seen him because he wore a mask. Well, Natalie Portman didn't see him either.
But I think he was in a Marvel movie. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, maybe if we ever get to the long list of Marvel movies that I haven't seen, he'll show up somewhere else. His name is familiar to me. And just to fill in, right? It's a dystopian future in the UK. I didn't actually know it was going to be in the UK.
Yeah, I didn't know it was until I actually watched it, so...
When was the first time you watched it?
Oh, God. The first time I watched it is when somebody told me about the Guy Fawkes masks in high school, and I was curious, and...
You were... So, that led you to the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, it is true. That's one of the things... Because the Guy Fawkes mask obviously is a symbol in its own right, but it's a symbol, particularly in this movie, because the movie calls back to Guy Fawkes trying to blow up the Houses of Parliament in what? It was... Well, this was supposed to be released for the 400th anniversary of that, I guess, attempt, or Guy Fawkes Night, which I assume is the attempt, or maybe it's when he was hung, or maybe it's his birthday, you never know. So that would have been... 1605? I wonder what was going on in 1605 to make him want to blow up the Houses of Parliament. I'm sure plenty of things. I don't know the political backstory of this movie. Now I'm curious. Maybe I should add that as a segment. But looking into that, I mean, I feel like not that the connection was a little ham-fisted, but they repeated that poem 3 or 4 times through the course of the movie. They repeated it almost back to back at the beginning. You know, they had the intro where it's just the black screen, or I can't remember what it was exactly, but then Natalie Portman's character is giving the dialogue and reading the poem, and then going right into the movie, it's repeated again. And I thought, man, I feel like that prologue might have been a little unnecessary. And I'm ragging on it. I want everyone to know that we're going to do star ratings at the end, and we're going to justify those ratings. And I liked this movie, and obviously you like this movie. Mm-hmm. Because, it was your choice. And it just seemed a little bit much. I guess if the audience doesn't know Guy Fawkes Knight, then again, I didn't. Uh, or like who he was or anything he did. Oh, right. It wasn't a black screen. It was like the reenactment, or it was the showing of him trying to blow up the House of Parliament and getting caught, getting hung. Right? Yeah. Right at the beginning. Um, and that sort of struck me as like, okay, it's cool that we saw this, but aside from V's, who's the other main character, aside from V's desire to be like him, it doesn't really matter. Like it's not following those events aside from in spirit. Although I get that it's about the spirit. You know, there's a whole sort of theme of the movie dedicated to a a man or a woman or an individual matters much less than an idea, which, to sort of pull apart the movie a little bit, is sort of the important thread there. I enjoyed that. I just feel like it was a little bit ham-fisted. I feel like it could have been a little bit more subtle. It's very not subtle. But if I gotta say, if anything wasn't subtle, it was the ending. It was the climax, and that's a good thing. With everyone showing up in the masks and the capes, it was incredibly. I mean, pretty is not the word I want to use, but it was a moment. It was a very well created moment of this sort of wall of masked people. And then at the end, they get to all take their masks off and they're revealed as individuals, which I didn't necessarily understand the significance of that. Uh, I mean, I get it, but what did you think about that?
I thought it was nice. It was symbolizing that these these what's the word I'm looking for? V's hard work paid off because he spoke the truth, and those people knew about the chancellor, and knowing that he was, not in the right ways, and what he explained when he broke into, what would you say was the TV station?
Yeah, when he broke into the broadcasting station.
When he broke into the broadcasting station, he hijacked the emergency line and put up an emergency broadcast to all the TVs, to everything, and he spoke the truth. And then I think it was towards the end of the movie, everybody got packages with the masks, the hat, the wig, and the cape as well, and they basically stormed the Capitol, not the Capitol, the...
Well, yeah, they stormed the Houses of Parliament, the government. And stormed is not the right word, I guess. It wasn't exactly... It could have turned into a real disaster, of course.
They peacefully walked, and there was too many people to stop anybody. And I don't know if you noticed in the end of the movie, that, I don't know if you noticed that when they were taking off the masks, it was everybody that was beaten or taken away. Because I noticed at the end there was the girl that left the note. I forgot what her name was. The movie star, the lesbian.
Really?
The lesbian and her girlfriends. Stephen Fry, the Gordon, the little girl's parents that got shot, was in the audience. Like,
really?
Was with all the people.
Well, yeah, so I saw the little girl that got shot, and I went, well, how was she there? I thought she died.
Yeah, because it was all the people that have died, and her parents, the actress, a couple of other people I'd never seen, but like I think it was her parents in the audience as well that were killed.
Really?
Yes.
Man, now I need to go and watch that scene again because I totally missed that, and that I guess that explains to me the significance of that scene, huh? That was they're revealing them to be. It's symbolic, right? Because those people are all dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's symbolically that underneath those masks are the people that fought and died for this revolution just as much as they are the real people that are there. That was a good catch. I did not notice that at all.
That was actually, I've seen this movie 3 times now, the third time with you, and that's the first time I've noticed it.
Okay. Yeah, because I had a moment of remember when they're throwing the bodies in the pit?
Yes.
I noticed one of the bodies. I recognized it as the girl who wrote the note later.
Yes.
Yeah.
I noticed that when the doctor was handing out the shots when they were all in line. I noticed that.
So, I mean, there are only so many actors in Great Britain. I understand that. That's why it's the same 6 people in every Doctor Who episode. But, that definitely was on purpose. And that's not something that I realized. Maybe I need to go back and watch this again as okay, now I'm going to see more stuff. I love watching those movies where every time you watch them, you see more stuff. And I think that's good proof that this one has layers to unravel. And everything, it really does make it seem like everything in the movie has a good reason for being there. And my critique of, well, they're retreading the same thing without much purpose, it was absolutely very deliberate. What?
Also, I don't know if you know this. I know you went on this whole tangent about the beginning of the movie and how, V is recreating it. He also mentioned that when he was in the lab and he set everything ablaze, that was November 5th as well.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. The thing that gets me about V, and I don't want to call this a plot hole. I don't want to call it, anything in particular. It's obviously, again, very deliberate that it's set up this way, but he seems to be perfect at everything he does. V managed to orchestrate the destruction of the facility that he was in. He managed to orchestrate the takeover of the broadcasting station. He managed to orchestrate all the packages going out and stuff like that. Everything is perfect, even though in every scenario, except for the one when he got caught at the broadcasting station, and Evie saved him. In every scenario, even though he seems like he's one step behind the authorities, because they're always there, or they always are trying to get there. You see, like, when he goes and kills the scientist woman,
They were on the way.
They were already on the way. They didn't, get a notice. It's only coincidence that they missed each other,
Well, thing with that is the cops knew that the doctor changed her name, and then they were on their way, and
right.
He was there and had a conversation with her.
Right, but they only found out about that last minute as almost a fluke. They noticed she changed her name. If they had if they had figured that out, we don't see the exact timeline, but if they had figured that out just a little bit earlier, they would have caught him in the act. Or if they had figured out a little bit later, they would have been informed of her death before figuring it out. Or they would have been looking for her and she was already dead.
Yes.
So they do seem to... V and the authorities seem to almost be in lockstep, and despite that, V is able to pull off almost everything in his plans perfectly. And I like the fact that he went out of his way to kill basically all of the heads of government at the same time, so that the world was completely headless, or Great Britain was completely headless, and left entirely to the people, which was a brilliant stroke, and B, brilliant writing, because if you leave any of those people alive, or at least the more conniving ones, they're going to fill in that power vacuum immediately. So he killed the Chancellor, who I'm just noticing right now is played by John Hurt, and I didn't even notice that. But he also...
Really?
Yeah. He also killed the other guy, the backup guy, the guy who was backstabbing John Hurt. And then he... Remember the...
Oh, Creedy.
Thank you, yeah. And, you think like, oh, he kills the Chancellor as a symbol, and then he was gonna, make his deal with Creedy or whatever, and then Creedy would be killed by the ensuing, riots, etc. But no, he didn't even... It seems like he didn't want riots like that at all.
No.
He just wanted this sort of like, oh, the old government's gone, now what do we do? And I feel like that is it's a fantasy of a revolution, right?
Hmm.
I don't think nothing in real life can be like that, but I think that sort of adds to V's mythical ability, where he's able to, you know, steal all his art and live in his secret hideout, which apparently is very close to, the center of London, because when they go up on the roof, they're like right there, right?
Hmm.
Um, he was able to, he said, build a section of subway tunnel in 10 years, which is a long time. But he was able to orchestrate all the packages, procure all of that stuff. Where do the masks come from? Who who manufactured all of these masks? Did he do it? I don't know if he has the capability to do it. You'd need a whole production line. But none of that matters because V in this case is more than just a man. He is the embodiment of the idea of revolution, right? And did you ever think about that? Like, hey, where's all this stuff coming from? How is he managing to pull all this off? And like it all just works out for him. Uh, no,
A little bit, yeah. But other than that, I just thought that maybe he's been planning this for a while. Who knows how many masks he's had, or how much stuff he had lying around. He built a sewer tunnel, a train tunnel, or subway tunnel, whatever you want to call it, in 10 years. He's got to be getting stuff from somewhere.
right? He's got to be getting stuff from somewhere, and I think it's very important that they don't just leave it to the imagination. They don't even touch on it at all. They don't even mention it. They just show up. Stuff just shows up. How quick was that government to ban the 1812 overture after it was used on the first, night when he blew up
The building.
the first building. I can't remember what it was called, but important looking building. Um, they immediately were, okay, we're banning that song. I don't want to ever hear it again. Uh, don't you think they would have banned the masks, right? Hey, where do you get that? I was hoping that there would be no interruptions, but of course there are always interruptions. But yeah, so this stuff has to come from somewhere. Maybe it's coming from America. Maybe America isn't. They they talk about how they really lean on putting the fear into people,
Hmm.
and it makes you wonder. Okay, how much of that is true at all? You know, people can't leave the country. People can't leave London.
I would also like to bring up the fact that they're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right, but are they? Are they? Because
They said it was man-made,
right,
and all of the outbreaks were happening in London.
all the outbreaks that were happening. Well, we don't know they all happening in London. I believe St. Mary's was in Ireland, right? Uh,
No.
no, because they. Who was the Irish guy? Which because one of the main guys is called out as Irish. I think it was, um, the cop, was called out as Irish, and they gave like a real strong apology. He was given like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what happened to the Irish people at St. Mary's" or something like that. I remember that being a thread that was woven in there. It made me think that this is more than just something that happened in London. I mean, clearly it happened all over Britain, which is why this government was able to take power. But it just makes me think how much of the problems that were going on in that world are real and how much of that is completely fabricated. I mean, obviously the virus is real, but the virus is fabricated and it's released intentionally in places to cause the most chaos.
Hmm.
But what if there was no pandemic other than that? I know they talked about that there were problems that pushed people towards the party before those three things happened. But the sort of underlying what's going on in the world, a lot of that is left. It's seemingly sensical, but a lot of that is left to like, well, what's really happening? We have no idea what's going on outside Britain. We don't know what's going on in the rest of Europe. We don't really know what's going on in the United States. Uh,
There was snippets here and there about the United States and stuff.
Yeah, but we don't know how much of that is true.
Well, yes, but they were watching the news and stuff, so
Which is established that the news is completely sensationalized and fabricated to the point where Evie knows when that anchor woman is doing a fictitious story just by the way she looks. Like it's that
well,
common.
it's because she works at the news station.
Right. But she knows it's that common. So I don't know. The rest of the world could be totally fine, and it's just the UK that's a disaster. Um, and right, what at the beginning, the US sent a bunch of stuff,
Medical supplies.
medical supplies, and wasn't there food and stuff as well? I remember there being like shipments of food.
I think so.
Now that doesn't strike me as now in the movie they play it off as the U.S. is giving sort of like tribute to their leaders, their rightful owners. Because if I'm remembering right, the U.K. has subjugated the U.S. because of the Civil War, etc. Something like that. Um, so there definitely was something more major that was going on, but it stands to reason how much of what we hear is accurate in the movie, how much of what we hear is correct. Maybe those supplies weren't because weren't because they're paying tribute to their overlords, but because they know that the entire country is a disaster and they're sending aid to the people. Imagine, picture it a little differently. Picture it from the U.S.'s perspective. If in this world the U.S. is actually pretty stable, they've evened it out, and they're just watching Britain on the other side of the pond be a complete fascist disaster, and they're just sending like aid to the people. They're just trying to send aid to the people, you know, and that's maybe explains why the news anchor, the one that gets killed, totally goes off on the supplies and is like, maybe we should throw it in the harbor. It's worthless. We don't need them. Just to sow that dissent because they don't want the people to be thinking highly of any other country. All right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just all of that just like clicked, and maybe I'm going too far into the conspiracy theory, but what do you think? What do you think is really real in the world they're portraying?
I think that they are in a very highly fascist nation being run by a man who thinks that he is fixing everything when he is obviously not. He is making the Great Britain, a terrible place to live in. So maybe that's why V is standing up to the government because he doesn't want to see people suffer. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to see everybody getting experimented on like he got experimented on.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to be he wants to be the hero. He wants to be
Well, I'm not sure he wants to be the hero so much as he wants there to be
he wants there to be a
a new
hero.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's why he's anonymous, right? That's why he's you know, that's why he never even shows his face. Which, by the way, I just want to say we've got like a minute left in this segment, but I want to say that you're absolutely right. They're not making life better. It's pretty clear that the leadership isn't concerned with making life better. In fact,
No,
they're
they
concerned about actively making life worse as long as they can stay in power,
mhm.
right? But V brings Evie into his place because that's the only thing that he can do to save her. And then he can never undress after that. Imagine, like, if I had that pad, I would not wear clothes a lot of the time, I feel like. You're rolling your eyes, but you know that it's true. Uh, if I lived alone and I had no windows, right? But now he's got to be not only in his whole get up and mask and everything, he's got to be in that all the time. He's got to be in that when he's home, when he's cooking, you know? Uh, it sucks. That sucks. I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, he's sure as hell committed to the character, but like, and I'm glad it's written like that. Also, I'm glad it's written where he never shows his face.
I also like to point out when I first saw this movie, um, and he was cooking without his gloves on, so he doesn't show his burned skin. I honest to God thought that he was wearing cooking gloves. I didn't know that it was his skin, and I
Oh
apologize.
my god, now I want to get you. Christmas is coming. I'm going to get you oven mitts that just look like his hands. They just
Don't.
have that like burned.
Please don't. If you do, we're getting a divorce.
Those are the most cursed oven mitts in the world. Okay,
Give him to Dean.
give him to Dean. Jesus. Okay, all right. So that's V for Vendetta. Uh, it's time to give our star ratings. I'm gonna say right out. I gave this a rating of 4.5 out of 5.
The way you were talking about it, you were like raving and going, and like you gave it a 5.
Okay, yeah, but the reason I didn't give it a 5 is because I don't give these ratings after I sit down and make this podcast. I give them after we watch the movie. And I feel like if I'm going to give a 5, it's got to hit me in a really, really special way. Like I gave, this is spoilers for when if ever we come around to it, but I gave Knives Out a 5 because it was like a 2-hour long anxiety attack. It was a movie like nothing I've ever experienced. That deserved a 5. This was an incredible movie, but at the end of it, I went, huh, that was a good movie. I could find no flaws with it, but it didn't hit me in like a unique and special way. Because I want to reserve 5 stars for things that I think are really something. But what about you? You did give it 5 stars.
I did give it a 5 because not only have I seen this movie now 3 times, but I think that it resonates with the way to start a rebellion, the how you have to take everything a step at a time, or even plan ahead for a rebellion, and how to perfectly pull it off, not only as to make sure your revolution succeeds, but to make sure that there is a not an uprising, but a conflict,
A
change. Yes, not a conflict, a change to to your revolution, to have somebody, even if it's from the littlest girl who believed V right away, um, to the oldest person that there is, as long as there's a change and that change means something.
Yeah, it really did strike me how that message resonated with just about everybody. You know, they showed the bar cleared out, the old
Mm-hmm.
folks home cleared out, the house cleared out. That, you know, V certainly hit the nail on the head. It is a rosy revolution, that's for sure. It is a revolution drawn in a way that is so beautifully unrealistic, but is beautiful nevertheless.
Can I say that in the end scene, spoilers for if you ever seen it or
Oh,
have
as
seen
if
it,
we haven't spoiled stuff already.
but in the end scene after V is dead, I like to mention that Natalie Portman never took off his mask and left his identity hidden.
Yeah, that was. I'm surprised they didn't focus on that more.
And then they covered him in roses, and I also like to mention that they didn't use explosives; they used fireworks.
Okay, they used explosives and fireworks. It's 6 of one, half dozen. What is firework except a fancy explosive?
Well, whatever.
I mean, you know, he used everything. He used fertilizer for God's sake, which is a trademark
I,
of terrorist bombings around the world.
yes, but I don't know if also if, one more thing before we go to the outro. I know I'm dragging on,
No, it's fine.
but when they went to the St. Mary's Memorial, did you notice? You knew that was V, right?
Yeah.
I like how he just played the police, like no problem.
Well, everything works for him. Despite, except for the one time where Evie had to save his butt, everything works out perfectly. His plans work perfectly. It is a rosy view of Revolution. But it's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie, and would you like to mention the movie, the what you chose next, or have you chose?
I have not chosen yet, but I would like to make this a weekly show, so which that means we gotta watch a lot of movies. So, hey, you wanna watch a movie? We'll see you next week, everybody.
Bye.